and welcome to Our World, Our Power. You're here with Lady Pauline and my co-host guest, Mr. Glenn Remich, our Honorable Mayor of Sutton Boulevard, and Dr. George Honora, who heads up Left Rack City's community and makes it a better place, a better world to live.
Thank you.
And today we have a very special guest, Mr. Phil Orenstein, who is representing Queens Village Republican Club, by the way, which is America's oldest Republican club in the country. Phil, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm very excited about this program.
Yeah, we're excited to have you, and we want to use today as an opportunity to really dispel some of the myths about the Republican Party and really look at what is available in Southeast Queens through the Republican Party. So, Phil, before you get started, give us a little background about you, because I understand you went to Francis Lewis High School.
Yes, I
you
did.
went to Stony
Brook, right, yeah.
You know, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
Right, well, I went to Francis Lewis when it was just opening.
Oh, wow.
Way back when.
Yes, yeah.
And then, Stony Brook University, and I graduated from there. I can't remember when, it's too far back to remember those years. But anyway, I went into manufacturing. I was in the manufacturing
Business, yeah.
industry all my life
Okay.
as a CNC programmer and a machine shop manager.
Okay.
The last stint I did was for a company out on Long Island where I managed the machine shop, and I was very much into manufacturing. It was my passion. It was my love. CAD CAM, for anyone who knows the technology.
I remember CAD CAM.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And so, how did you get attached to the Republican Party? Was that something that your college days or post college?
Post college, yes. It was way post college. In fact, I was a lifelong Democrat.
Okay.
My family, my cousins, my extended family, my friends were all Democrats. We were very liberal. I was a hippie, actually a yippie. I went to the convention, and the protest against the Democratic Convention in Chicago in 1968.
Wow.
And I was one of the protesters there, protesting the war in Vietnam.
Yeah.
So, I've been on that side of the fence, and then I went into the real working world, and, my views started changing little by little, gradually. And then, after 9/11, it took a radical change. As I was talking to Pauline before, that was a transformational event which changed many people's lives. And at that time, I realized my love for America. And, I wanted somehow to do something more, for the society, which eventually led me to seek, other answers. And I found a small group in my neighborhood. Actually, I was looking, at that time, President Bush was campaigning for office.
Father or
Son.
Okay.
George Bush, George
Okay.
George W.
Okay.
W. And I was looking to campaign for him. So, this was, I think, in 2003 or 4, around that time. And everyone was saying, oh, the Republican Party is dead in New York. Go to New Jersey or Pennsylvania or somewhere else.
Okay.
And I said, no, that can't be. I said, because I've always believed in the potential of the human mind, that, if you put your mind to something, you could accomplish it.
Absolutely.
And you should have a winning spirit. So I went into a small group called the Queens Village Republican Club.
Okay.
And started petitioning for Senator Frank Padovan. At that time, everybody knows Senator Padovan. His motto was, nobody cares like Frank. And it was very true. And he was, besides Surf Maltese, there were only 2 Republicans in all of Queens. All other elected officials were Democrats. I saw a big imbalance in that.
Okay.
There have to be 2 viewpoints in
Right.
order to have a robust society. There has to be competition.
Yes.
Not only in the marketplace of goods, but in the marketplace of ideas.
Good.
So I
like
wanted to
that.
bring out the ideas that I believed that the Republican Party stand for. Individuality, limited government, personal freedom, and these, issues, people standing up on their own 2 feet with responsibility for their lives rather than, accepting, seeking government handouts and programs and becoming dependent upon government. You become dependent upon yourself, independence. That's what I believed in.
Phil, I'd like to ask you a question. What is the most misunderstood concept people have about the Republican Party today?
Well, I'm glad you asked that because we are misunderstood. Do not believe what they tell you about Republicans. We're not, for the 1% wealthy. We're not all, racists as they would make us out. In fact, I had a very interesting experience. One of our members, our club, the Queens Village Republican Club, which I'm the president of, is one of the most diverse clubs in America. And I was knocking on doors with a Jamaican lady whose skin was as dark as charcoal. And we were walking in, Jamaica Estates area, and one person answered the door, and we said, "We're Republicans, we're from the Republican Party." So the person who answered, a white, liberal, Democrat, said, "Oh, Republicans are racist." So Mary was her name, the lady from Jamaica, the island of Jamaica. Said, "I'm Republican." So people have so many misconceptions about Republicans. We're your neighbors. Republicans live with you. They work with you. We're in your neighborhood. We're, in our club, we have people from every race, every religion, every ethnicity. We have Pakistanis, we have Chinese people, we have, people from Georgia, from Haiti, from all over the world, all religions. And we all believe in the same shared values, that we love America, we love our freedom, we love this country. We don't divide ourselves as liberals and Democrats often do by race or gender or sexual orientation and form that as your identity. Our identity is that we're freedom-loving Americans. America was built as the beacon of freedom to the world, the shining city on the hill. And that's what unites us. We believe our country is unique, is exceptional, and everybody has the opportunity to excel and reveal their God-given potential, inside themselves in a free society, not in a society where you have a big government and everybody's getting welfare and handouts and you become a slave of the government. You become dependent on something outside yourself rather than your own true innermost capabilities. And that's what the Republican Party is about. And that's what I believe in my core, that the Republican Party needs to, express our principles and to, get the word out. I'm always out in the neighborhood talking to, to people about our principles and our beliefs and getting people active and involved, with our club, with our movement, because it's always better, as I mentioned, to have 2 viewpoints instead of 1. And Frank Padovan, if I may add one more thing about Frank Padovan, wherever he went, our beloved Senator Padovan passed away last year. And he used to say to every different ethnic, religious, or racial group that he visited, that he talked in front of, "You're all Republicans, you just don't know it."
Okay, I like that, Phil. Tell me something, Phil. How many, I just recently, matter of fact, about 2 years ago, I did an interview with a gentleman called Burnett, and he told me he was a Republican.
Oh, John Burnett, yeah,
Yes.
Good friend of mine,
Right.
good friend of mine.
He's a lovely young black man, and I was like, when he said to me,
Wonderful guy. He's
yes,
from Queens Village.
Yes, he is.
Is he from your club?
Well, he's a member of our club,
Okay.
but originally he grew up in Queens Village.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So when I saw him and I was doing the interview with him, and he told me that he was a Republican, I was like, oh, really? I was taken back a bit, and I did not know really what to say, because I assumed that he was Democrat. So that's one of the things that I think a lot of people have a misconception that Republicans can be of any race. It's not
Correct.
and that's one of the things I wanted to clarify today and make it known to the public that I've been doing a lot of research. And I found that at one time I was a Republican by what I stood for.
Right. Well, many people are, many people are in their hearts, in their souls, Republicans. But, some people are afraid to come out of the closet, because, I believe a lot of, people are very intolerant of your political views, if your conservative viewpoints, such views are not tolerated on college campuses. They'll be violent against someone who espouses different political views on college campuses today. Conservative speakers are banned. There's open hostility and violence against someone who might wear a Trump, a hat, a Make America Great Again cap, expressing their, their support for our president. Mm-hmm. And certain viewpoints are not tolerated. And I believe that goes on a lot, not only on college campuses, but, what I want to do is people should express themselves. This is a free country. Right. We have the First Amendment guaranteeing our freedom of speech. I go around walking around with a red shirt like this, sometimes with my club insignia, the Queens Village Republican Club, and sometimes with Trump. The word Trump on, going down, a beautiful red bright shirt. And a lot of people see me, give me a thumbs up. Very few people, have ever flipped me the bird. A couple, once or twice it happens. But most people are very appreciative for people to stand up and express what you believe in. And I think this should happen more. People on the left or the right, whatever your opinion is, you should not be afraid to express it. Here in America, this is a country of freedom. We have to, be free and express our freedoms.
Yeah. George, you have a question?
Yeah. So, I believe it's Aristotle that once said that man is by nature a political animal.
Right.
And we know that all politics is local. I think Tip O'Neill once said that too, the former Speaker of Congress. So, being that I studied political science in college, and I've been in grassroots and all kinds of things, I'm wondering, as the head of the Republican Party in your area, what steps do you think your party can take to grow the party? I know Pauline had asked that question earlier, to attract more women, more young people, and so on and so forth, because I think you need to do some of those things to even compete with the party. The ratio of Democrats to Republicans, I think, is about 5-1.
So, right, yeah, that's correct. Yeah, in Queens it's about 5-6-1.
Yeah. So what do you think your party can do to kind of close the gap a little bit?
Right, yeah, thank you for that question. And what we do as a club, we always try to expand our membership, bring people into our club. We have, monthly meetings, club meetings at the Holliswood Jewish Center on Francis Lewis Boulevard. Monthly meetings with provocative speakers. Last month we had what I think is one of the foremost teachers of the Constitution in America, Chris Ann Hall, gave us a 1-hour lecture on the foundations of the Constitution. And like our natural rights, which come from God, not from government, was her basic lesson. And this was such an inspiring meeting. Next month, actually June 6th, we're having a meeting with a Republican who's running against AOC. Richard Valdez, who's the call screener for Mark Levin and the associate producer of the Mark Levin radio program. Many, conservative or Republican people will know the name Mark Levin. He's on the radio every day I believe on 7/10. And so Rich Valdez is going to be at our meeting. He's running against AOC, Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, or as he likes to call, all out crazy, because of her, I believe she's one of the most dangerous Congress people in America, with these utopian socialist plans which would bankrupt our country, like the Green New Deal, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, to get back to your question, what do? We help people to navigate the political process. The political process involves, petitioning to get on the ballot. And we've met a lot of people, young and old, who, feel a calling to get into politics, to serve their communities as a legislator, as a representative of the people, as a congressperson. And we find these people, we groom them, and we navigate the system, which is based on keeping incumbents in power. We heard our president say many times the system is rigged. The system is rigged. It's a very, and you probably studied this in political science, that it's so intricate. An ordinary person like you or me or Pauline or Glenn, if you want to say, hey, I want to run for office, I want to serve this community, in a better way and make, certain laws, and I have a lot of ideas that could benefit this community. How do I do it?
Yes.
You don't know the first step, which is so confusing and so complicated. There's a petitioning process. Right. You got to get on the ballot. There's going to be challenges from the opposing party. You got to be ready for these objections and challenges and to go to court, even Queen's Supreme Court. You may have to go to. It's a very complicated process, but we will take you through that. Our club provides a venue to take you through that process. So my passion is to find individuals with potential and develop their God-given gifts so they could give it to the community through the political process. So if someone say, I met this fellow a couple of years ago, actually a neighbor of mine who started coming to our club. He's a sign maker. Ira Harris is his name. And I saw a great gift in him, a great potential that he wasn't using. So I, spoke to him a couple of times. His head is bursting with ideas, what he wants to do for the homeless, what he wants to do for business and, in the community, wow, he was coming with these ideas so fast and very frustrated because they were bottled up inside of him. And I asked him, how would you like to run for New York State Assembly in this area? He lives in the 24th Assembly District. He would be running against David Weprin. I said to him, how about it? He said it hit him like a thunderbolt. He never thought of that running for office. But then he said yes. And I became his campaign manager.
Oh, okay. That's awesome.
And what he did every day, he would work hard in the sign business, putting up awnings. He makes beautiful signs, by the way, Desant signs in Floral Park. If you need a sign, go to Ira. Okay. He's the best. He does, signs, truck lettering, printing needs and everything. So after a hard day in the sun on roofs, putting up awnings, putting up truck lettering and everything, he'd come home, take a shower, put on a jacket and tie, and come out on the campaign trail to Cunningham Park, where we'd interact with people and talk about his ideas and get a lot of people, to see his ideas and to vote for him. And then we'd knock on doors, we'd have fundraisers, we'd have events, we'd invite friends over, we'd go to someone's house, have a little, coffee clutch, invite the neighbors over, and talk about the issues that everyone should be involved in.
How long is this process?
This process is generally about 4 to 6 months. It can be longer, depending upon, someone's political ambitions. The earlier you start, the better. And it's very, of course, the deck is stacked against us, as Republicans. So most people, will vote Democrat because their union tells them to vote Democrat. True. But we try to break through that, that wall of I have to vote a certain way. Your union will never know the way you vote. When you go into the voting booth, it's a secret ballot. And, you know.
So this individual that going to run against AOC, what's the name again?
His name is Richard Valdez.
Yeah, that should be a very interesting race.
That'll be a very interesting
because
race.
I know Ocasio-Cortez is my congressperson, and I know how hard she's working. And I don't know if you heard in the news yesterday, Ted Cruz has agreed that both of them will collaborate about, people that are in Congress, and as soon as they leave, they become lobbyists.
Right,
So
right.
they want
yeah.
to work to stop that, to pass a bill or something. But
Right.
you know how it goes.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, people want to make money and nothing happens.
We are a constitutional republic.
Probably, yeah.
America is founded on the principles that our rights, come from God.
God, yeah.
We have God-given rights which are enumerated in the Constitution, and we form a government in order to protect those rights. It says in the Declaration of Independence, that people shall, to get together to form a government to protect the rights, of life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. They're enumerated in the Bill of Rights in our Constitution. And this is why people are elected to office. And this is why it's every man and woman's who are 18 years old and over, it's their civic duty to learn about the issues, learn about the candidates, and go out and vote. The people who are elected to office are not supposed to be lobbyists. They're not supposed to be serving themselves.
Right.
That's why it's important that all voters, all the listeners on this program who vote, you have to understand, no matter what party, I'll say Republicans, Democrats alike, they're supposed to be serving the people. They are representatives of the people whose mission and job it is to uphold our Constitution, and keeping our freedoms, keeping our prosperity, keeping America the safest place on earth where people can better their lives. This is the purpose of voting, why it's so important.
Right now, I'd like to say that our power is on Caribbean Buzz Radio and TV. You can also hear us on Spotify, iTunes. We're also on YouTube. So please don't forget to check out those platforms. Pauline Swift, Glenn Renrich, and Dr. Georgia Nora. And we're here talking with the oldest club, Republican club here in the United States.
Mr. Phil Orenstein.
Right, but I must add that I was not around at the time of the club's founding in 1875, because it may sound like
I
that,
wanted to say
saying I'm
something
the
to you,
oldest
Phil.
Republican club. I mean,
I started out the business on your car, on the car, and I was like, man, that must be a mistake. It must be 1975 or something. Oh, God.
yeah, I'm not a spring chicken, but I'm not that old.
Well, let me ask you this.
Yes.
I'm from Jamaica, Queens. Why should I investigate the Republican Party?
Well, because the Republican Party is a party of people who believe in America, who believe in, prosperity, who believe in safety, who believe in freedom.
Okay.
Our founding gifts guaranteed by the Constitution. I believe the Republican Party upholds these principles and fights for these principles and, finds, our club is, believes in this. I say it at every meeting I go to, that we believe, in maximum personal freedom and limited constitutionally limited government. We believe in the pursuit of the American dream. We support our police. We support our firefighters, our first responders who protect our lives. And we believe in our president's America First agenda, which has been a great, great boom to our economy, whether you like President Trump or not. What he's done to bring jobs back to America, to bring the unemployment insurance level to the lowest rate in 50 years is a benefit to everybody.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Democrats,
Absolutely.
Republicans
Yes,
alike.
Yes.
Now you said, I've heard it a couple times, being self-sufficient. So what if I'm a business in Southeast Queens? How can the Republican Party support me in business?
Well, that's a very good question. And the Republican Party, in fact, when, the first Vice President, Joe Kincannon, actually he was going to be with me today, but he had a family emergency. He ran for state senate.
Okay.
And he talked to a lot of business people. Business people are closing down their doors
Yes.
because of the onerous taxes, fees, fines, and regulations. There was a beloved restaurant on Union Turnpike, I don't know if you remember Dante's, and they closed their door because the straw that broke the camel's back was an inspector that came in and their exit sign was missing one bulb. So they were cited for thousands of dollars for that violation. And they said, that's it, we're closing our doors. The regulations are so onerous. This is a revenue generating machine for the city's coffers.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be, attacking and assaulting business people and entrepreneurs like this. It's so hard to start a business. I know so many restaurants are going out of business, are so troubled by the minimum wage laws.
Right.
They cannot compete. And, a friend of mine who owns an Indian restaurant, Southern Spice, who was rated by Newsday the top 10 in Asian restaurants in all of Queens and Long Island.
Wow.
By Newsday.
Yeah.
He is busier now than he has ever been, but he's making less profit because of the minimum wage laws. He has to pay, extra couple of bucks for every wait staff he has, for his cooks, for all the services, the fees, the insurance. Everything is plaguing him so much, he might go out of business. And this is my favorite restaurant. I go there all the time. It's delicious. Southern Spice on Hillside Avenue in New Hyde Park. But businesses will benefit from Republicans, from the Republican Party, and electing Republicans, because Republicans will fight against the fees, the high taxes, the high property taxes, the onerous regulations placed on business. They are ridiculous. Some of them are outrageous. How big your sign letters should be. This is such a nanny state, the government telling you how to live, how to run your life, how to run your business. It is so hard to have a business in New York. Many people I know are packing up and leaving. Businessmen, homeowners alike, because they just can't afford it. They can't afford it. It's so hard to open up a business. What Republicans will do is, I sound like a politician now.
Yes.
But this is the truth. This is why we need to elect Republicans, because they'll fight against these draconian regulations, the high taxes. They will fight for lower taxes, get rid of the regulations, these ridiculous ratings and regulations and everything that are so troubling to business, and we will have a thriving community once again. Right now, I think New York is headed for disaster. More people are leaving New York State than any other state in the nation.
Well, Phil, I myself was thinking about leaving because, it's very difficult and hard to live here in New York City. The cost of living, the rent is very, very high. It keeps going up, and your salary is not going up. That's one of the reasons why I got into business over 25 years ago, because I wanted to be, in control of my destiny.
Right.
And
Exactly.
which is very important, but not everybody has a business.
Right.
Some people have to still work for other people.
Well, they have to work several jobs just to keep up with the cost of living.
Well, that's why I know that, because I work 2 jobs. That's one of the reasons I had my 3 heart attacks. But besides all of that, in order to keep living, as I was telling you earlier, I'm from left right to these communities, in order to live a certain standard that I wanted to live,
Right.
I had to
Work 3 jobs.
Yes, you
Yeah,
know, and
yeah,
go to
that's what a
college
lot of people
and
have
go
to
to
do.
college full time.
Yeah.
But not everybody can keep that pace going all the time.
Exactly, exactly. Well, you know, I encourage you, you know, a lot of people are leaving, but I encourage you, just check out the Queens Village Republican Club. Check out the Republican Party before you decide to leave, because we're working very hard to change things. Many people feel that, you know, when we got this Democratic state legislature, we lost, you know, our control in the state Senate. When Tony Avello, you know, lost the election, and, you know, he was caucusing with the Republicans at that time, they passed all sorts of, you know, crazy you know, measures and high taxes, and this infanticide abortion bill, which, you know, allows a baby who's born outside the womb to be killed, you know, at the decision of the mother. This was a bill that they passed in January, at the beginning of the legislative sessions. And so many of these bills are going through now. But, you know, we are fighting back to, you know, to activate, get the Republican Party to be more active, to organize, to unite, and save our city, save our communities, and save our country. So check us out. The website, can I say the website?
Of course, most definitely.
It's www.qvgop.org. You will see information about, you know, joining our club, about our next meeting, upcoming activities, and read, you know, some very interesting, provocative articles on our website. So check us out. If you have plans to leave New York, just give us a visit first before you go.
Something I want to ask you, Glenn, because I remember speaking to you a few months ago, and I know you are the executive director of the Southern Bid.
Yes.
And you come in contact with people that own their businesses.
Right.
Are you finding what Phil said to be true, that they're having a lot of difficulties
Absolutely.
with their
Absolutely.
maintaining and keeping their business going?
Well, one of the things that's plaguing the downtown Jamaica area specifically is with all of the building that's going on, landlords are raising the rents. And so when it's time to renew a lease, the prices are going up, and quite a few businesses are going to be forced out because of the high overhead associated with rent and leasing out spaces. So it's we just did a survey, and 85% of the businesses surveyed, a couple thousand businesses, 85% of them were renting, and very few owned their own building. So if that is in fact the case, which it is, then you look at the rising prices, more and more of these small businesses are gonna be shut down, and we all know that small business drives the largest employment for this country. 50% of the workers are employed by small businesses. So it's going to be a heartfelt impact for the downtown area.
Right. Well, that's one of the things we're campaigning on. You know, rent is driven by property costs. Property costs are driven by taxes, property taxes, but it's not property taxes, it's the assessments.
Right.
Queens is very unfairly assessed in the property tax, you know, system. It's a game they play because we make the least noise. We have to make some noise.
Right.
We have to speak out. We have to throw certain politicians out of office who aren't fighting for us and threaten them. Call your local city councilman and tell them, if you don't drive down these onerous property taxes and assessments, we're going to throw you out of office, because we have a really great looking Republican who wants to take your seat. And then they'll get moving.
Yeah.
You'll see people get moving when you threaten their jobs.
Yeah.
But there hasn't been threats to their job. So we got to organize as Republicans and be a loyal opposition to the one dominating party You know, as I said before, it's always better to have two viewpoints
Absolutely.
in the battle, you know, field of ideas than one. And right now, in Queens, you have all Democratic elected officials except for one, who's gonna be term limited out of the city council, Eric Ulrich.
Eric just took a job in the national, right, with Trump. I think he's gonna start soon, and this was a week or so.
Maybe, I didn't hear about that, but he's gonna be term limited out this year.
Yeah.
And, you know, so we have a county, in fact, all the counties except for Staten Island in New York are, you know, 99%, you know, Democrat. And they control all the levers of powers. So, you know, if you have an issue, if you have a problem, if you're being forced, you know, out of New York by onerous regulations and rents and crazy property taxes assessments, you have no recourse because the politicians, the Democratic politicians, being the only ones who own, you know, the seats of power, will say, oh, I don't have to listen to you, I have no competition. So why do I have to work too hard? Competition is the way we work. Competition in the political venue is sorely needed to make our community a better community.
Phil, I want to say something. Years ago, I think I was 20, when I moved out of my parents' home, and I got my own apartment. And at that time, the rent was $137. I lived right across the street from Yankee Stadium on Jerome Avenue. And the young people of my generation at that time were moving out of their parents' home.
Right.
You know, they were, you know, prospering.
Right.
I had a good job. I was able to pay the rent, blah, 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 blah. But now, the generation of my son's generation is stuck in the house with me.
Right.
Because of the rent being so high that they cannot go on their own.
Right. Exactly.
And I find this to be a setback.
Exactly.
Because I moved forward, now my children seem like they're moving backwards.
Right. We always want, you know, the next generation, our children and our grandchildren to do better than us.
Sure.
But it's not happening.
It's not happening because of the political makeup of New York City and New York State, which is controlled by Democrats. People have to understand that this is a fault of a one-party system where there's no competition. That's why it's so important that people get involved with the Republican Party. You know, to be that counterbalance, to be that counterweight, dispel the myths about the Republican Party that, you know, they're all like, you know, racist, white, who, you know, favor the rich. We don't. We're your neighbors, we're your friends, we're your, you know, co-workers. We're part of you, and we need a Republican Party in New York City and a strong Republican Party in New York State in order to make this society here in New York better, because it works in other states. I just, you know, spoke to a couple who were moving down to Tennessee. They said they've had it with New York, and they showed me their house, a nice house, you know, a nice cape, you know, with a nice little bit of property. And they said, in Tennessee, I'm paying a fraction of what I paid for this house, for a house that's 3 times the size on an acre of land. And in Tennessee, they have no unemployment insurance because jobs are so plentiful. This is even before the Trump economic boom. They were booming in Tennessee for many years because the state didn't tax the people. They had very few regulations. They're pro-business. And, you know, there's very little welfare. You don't get a welfare check unless you're missing both arms and both legs, you know, so to speak. People have to stand up on their own 2 feet. It's very safe there. People, I'm not trying to advertise for Tennessee, but, you know, this is, you know, it gives you a vision of what our society can become. A thriving society needs the Republican Party. We need a thriving Republican Party. And, you know, again, I urge people to come to our club meetings, to get involved. If people have, a desire to go into public service, we can provide a path to navigate through a rigged system where, they will make it impossible for you to get to first base.
So, Phil, the message, your party, where you are in Queens Village, is doing very well. What kind of, because you look around the rest of the state and even the city, the Republican Party has been in the doldrum, nothing is happening from what I can see. How do you change the messaging so that people that are looking in that wants to become part of you can actually now make the step to join or listen to your message? The message.
Well, first of all, part of what you said is incorrect. New York State is predominantly red, is Republican. There are 62 counties.
The city.
Oh, you're talking about the
New
city.
York City, yeah.
Well, yeah, just, to finish about New York State has 62 counties, 54 of them are red.
Right, yeah.
It's just New York City,
Yeah.
which is deep, deep blue. But what happened, I don't know if you were here like 30, 40 years ago when crime was going through the roof.
I was
There was
there.
a crack epidemic.
Yes.
There was graffiti on the subways. I had a business at that time in the South Bronx, and it was plagued with a crack epidemic
Yes.
there.
Yes.
And I was mugged several times on the street. My family, my friends all left New York in the 70s and 80s. And it got worse until we got Mayor Giuliani, the first Republican mayor in decades. And he straightened out New York City. He reduced crime by 65%. He devised a welfare to workfare program. He got people off the streets. He got the homeless people, off the streets and either in social services or shelters or in a job. And he increased the economy. He created a safe city so New York could, with after that, Bloomberg continued the good works of Mayor Giuliani, and New York City became the safest large city in America. And that's because a Republican was at the helm. If you look at a city like Detroit, Detroit is a failed city, one of the most unsafe cities in America,
Right now.
and they had the largest financial bankruptcy in American history. This used to be a thriving metropolis, one of the wealthiest cities in America. But because of 50 years of Democratic leaderships, one person, Coleman Young, was a card-carrying member of the Communist Party, who was the mayor of Detroit for a while. And they just sent all the Republicans and conservatives and wealthy people packing outside of Detroit, and the city collapsed, and it became a slum of human misery. What we need is Republican leadership. What we need is Republican representation. I'm not saying it should be all Republican, but it needs to be a balance. It needs to be a Republican and Democrat.
Let me ask you this, one of the new tax laws created the opportunity zones. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not very familiar with the tax law per se.
Basically what has been made available is for outside investors to be able to get a tax break for certain identified communities to come in and support that. Now, there was, I can't ask you the question because you're not familiar with it, but I was wondering what the Republican Party saw as the possibility for that. I know that the intention is really to support the growth and development of businesses in that particular community. And so there's still a lot of back and forth in terms of how to regulate those monies coming in. I think the intention is a good idea. We've had the empowerment zones.
Right. Oh, yeah. I think these are all very good programs, very good.
Effective.
Any investment in the community.
Yeah.
But if, you're throwing good money after bad, You know,
That's true.
you gotta start with the basics. High taxes, onerous regulations, high, property, unfair property assessments. You gotta start with the basics, the foundation. There's so many systemic failures in New York City and state government. The pension system has to be reformed. Why are there so many pensioners? And God bless our union, our hardworking union people, especially the firefighters, police, the teachers.
Sure.
They leave New York State with their,
pensions.
large pension money, and they go to Pennsylvania, they go to Tennessee, and they take all our tax dollars with them outside of New York State. We have to change that. We have to make New York State attractive for people not only to raise a family and a business, but to live.
Right.
To live here and a prosperous, safe community. Now it's, the state government, Cuomo, de Blasio, is so far to the left that they only value, people on welfare, criminals. It's a progressive agenda that we need to change.
Phil, it's been a pleasure to have you on our show, Our World, Our Power. I hope you come back and bring Joe with you.
Next time I'll bring Joe Kincannon, ex-police captain.
Yes. Our World, Our Power, here with Lady Pauline and Glenn Greenwich, our Honorable Mayor of Suffolk Boulevard, and Dr. George Honora. Thank you all for listening. Don't forget, as I said, to check us out on Spotify and iTunes and also our YouTube channel. Thank you. See you next week.
Bye-bye.